So what's on the line for Canada tonight, and what should we expect once the winner is declared, whenever that is? Scotty Greenwood is the CEO of the Canadian American Business Council and a partner with Crestview Strategy in Washington. She is also a former chief of staff at the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa. And Colin Robertson is vice president of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute and a former Canadian diplomat in Washington. It's good to see both of you. Thanks for speaking with me. Now, Scotty, let me start with you. Lots of uncertainty over the election outcome and lots of uncertainty about what the results could mean for Canada. Canadian politicians, for the most part, very careful in their comments leading up to tonight. If we don't have a clear winner tonight, what would your advice be to Canadian government officials and how they should respond if there's a long delay in the results?
Well, Peter, Canada has been playing it exactly right up until now, which is to be invisible and silent as to the U.S. election. Obviously, there's no foreign government or foreign person that can have any influence or should have any influence in what Americans decide, and shouldn't profess to have a view about what the outcome is. So Canada's been playing it exactly right up until now, and I think we'll have to continue to exert that discipline during the period of votes being counted and votes being certified, because as you said, this could take some time. There are an historic number of votes that were cast early but won't be started. The counting won't begin until later tonight or even in the days that follow. So we're going to have several days, I think, of uncertainty, and Canada should keep doing what it's doing, which is to be virtually silent during this process. And I will say, not all governments are doing that. There's a lot of talk about other embassies and foreign governments that are expressing a preference, and that's obviously not the right way to go.
Right. Colin, the Canadian government of the time faced a long delay in the results, as did Americans in the Bush-Gore election 20 years ago. Zipped lips was the order of the day in this country until a winner was determined, but that was a civil resolution in the end. Donald Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he loses. So if it gets nasty, how should Canada respond, or should it?
I think we wait until January 20th to see who the new administration is. In the meantime, as Scotty says, keep calm and prepare for whatever contingency. We have such vital interests that we do not want to prejudge what's going to happen.
You know, Peter, I happened to be in Ottawa in 2000 in the Clinton administration, and Ambassador Giffen, who I worked for, had an election watch party at his residence that night. And, you know, at about 3 in the morning, it was like, well, at what point do we have to actually start kicking people out? Like, this thing could take a while. And it's a good thing we finally did, you know, have people go home because,
you know, Scotty, if you invite Canadians to stay over, they'll stay for as long as it takes. They would have stayed for a week still, which it was before you got an answer.
It was a crazy time. I don't think it'll be this crazy. Colin is right. We will have a president sworn in on January 20th. There are different provisions, though, that could come into play. If the Electoral College, for example, is deadlocked in December when it has to meet, or if it's unclear, you know, the 12th Amendment of the Constitution says it's up to the House of Representatives to decide who the president is. So we will have a president. It'll either be Trump or Biden, and we will know by January 20th. But it could be pins and needles between now and then. I don't think it'll take us that long. I think we'll know in the next week or two. Okay. But we'll see. It comes down to Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, maybe Michigan.
Colin, a lot of Canadians would say, look, if Joe Biden wins, the relationship between Canada and the U.S. has got to get better. How safe is that assumption?
Well, as always, we'll look for, there's a lot in the Biden plan that would work well with what Mr. Trudeau's got in mind. Clean energy, social justice, corporate tax reform, that kind of thing. And so our objective will be to look for those areas where we can actually work with whoever the new administration is. Both administrations have talked about a major infrastructure program. Build Back Better, puts it. He's got in it something called Buy America. What we're going to have to do is pay them, as we did in the last big build project, to make it Buy North American, or at least have a reciprocity procurement agreement between states and provinces. That puts some of the burden not just on the Prime Minister and ministers, but on premiers working with their governors. And that will apply regardless. Legislators talking to legislators, premiers and governors. It's got to be an all-Canada effort, like we've seen over the last 3 years in the renegotiation of the new NAFTA.
Scotty, let me ask you. So is the question that simple? Who's better for Canada, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Is that an easy question to answer?
Well, Donald Trump hasn't been great for foreign relations with any of our partners. He likes to kind of poke our allies and embrace our adversaries, right? That's sort of his, and he does it for a reason. He's trying to keep people off base, and he thinks he has better negotiating posture. So that hasn't set well in Canada. So I think it'll be a different, less chaotic, more predictable, more kind of return to regular order kind of approach with Joe Biden, and that'll be a relief. But regardless, Canada obviously will work with whoever is elected. Canada has done a phenomenally good job in working with the Trump administration over the last 4 years. It's been remarkable, actually, to contrast how well Canada has done, whether it's the negotiation of the trade agreement or minimizing the tariffs, such as they are, than several of our other allies. So, but I do think there will be a sigh of relief, if not for a partisan reason, but just a return to regular order. I think that's something that will make life a little bit easier in the bilateral relationship.
Is the new NAFTA safe under a Joe Biden administration? Some of the things he's been saying about trade make you wonder. Colin, are we going to be back to renegotiating a trade deal if Joe Biden wins?
I think there are still bits of the new agreement that are going to require some teething pains, but don't forget, we had a majority of Democrats under Nancy Pelosi in the House vote for this agreement. There are provisions in this agreement that wouldn't be there if the Democrats in the House had not voted for it, particularly as it relates to labor and the environment. These were provisions that Canada had sought, but the Trump administration said no to. But in order to get it through Congress, they had to go along with what the Democrats, who had the majority in the House. So I think we're never safe. We always, but the fact that we had a strong number of Democrats back this, I think that works to our advantage.
Okay, I mean, Canada's always, everybody, Scotty makes a lot of the relationship between the president and the prime minister, and that's clearly been strained the last 4 years. But, Canada's become pretty good at, and I think you both touched on it, sort of working behind the scenes. If you don't have a great relationship with the president, maybe it's not even that great with some of the members of Congress, you go to the state level, you go to the business level. No matter who wins, do we expect to see that process continue with Canadians looking to people outside of federal circles, outside the White House, to try and move along an agenda that satisfies both countries?
I think so. I mean, the playbook that was really refined during the NAFTA renegotiation is one that works well and should continue. And that involved engaging people, as you say, outside the Beltway, engaging governors and mayors and groups like ours, the Canadian American Business Council. We're working on something now, Peter, that we call the North American Rebound. And the idea is to create a community of people that agree that coming out of the pandemic and into the economic rebound, we're in it together. So the U.S. and Canada shouldn't compete against each other. We should work together and compete against the world. And so I think you'll see initiatives like that the governments will lean into as well.
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, Peter, we need points of contact. So just as we've done over the last 3 years, working governors, premiers, state and provincial legislators, cabinet ministers going down to Ottawa and seeing not just their cabinet counterparts, but going up to Capitol Hill, the prime minister doing the same thing and seeing leadership on Capitol Hill. I think that's changed how we do business, and it's changed it as it has to be because we have such deep interest in the United States. Yes, we're trying to diversify our trade, which is exactly what we should do, but still the easiest place for Canadians to do business is the United States. Studies show you new exporters who we're trying to encourage to get into them, the best we get involved in is the United States. So we got to be on the United States all the time. We have to know them better than we know any other country.
All right, Scotty Greenwood, Colin Robertson, thank you both for your time, and enjoy the process tonight. A lot of people, obviously in the United States, watching, but a lot of Canadians will be watching too, and there's a lot to watch for. Thank you both for your time.
Thanks, Peter. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend Colin.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Scotty.